Hello and a very warm and sunny welcome to Eurosport's coverage of qualifying for round 2 of the 1997 PPG Kart World Series in Surfers Paradise, Australia. This is Ben Edwards and I'm delighted to be joined by a virtual native of this area of Australia and former Grand Prix driver as well, David Brabham. David, welcome to Eurosport's coverage of the IndyCar event that's going on this weekend, an area that you know pretty well.
Yeah, it's a lovely area of Australia, and I've got two brothers that live here as well, and the weather's good, and this is why people come here to live, because the weather's so good, and it's just, you've got the lovely beach. It's just a fantastic area of Australia.
The weather stays good, that's the other thing, isn't it? All the year round. I mean, we can see sunshine now, but it doesn't really matter what time of year you come to this part of the world, it's always like this.
Yeah, I hate talking to my brother because you know, it's supposed to be winter over there, and he says, well, I'm sort of got a t-shirt and a pair of shorts on, and makes me very envious.
Well, you're living in England most of the time, of course, now.
That's right.
With your motorsport. We're just taking a quick look down the pit lane with qualifying about to get underway. Preparations being made in the pit lane. That's one of the all-American race teams, that remarkable nose cone, the way they've got the eagle painted on, but they're actually running a Reynard chassis at the beginning of this year rather than their own Eagle chassis. They're trying to make that successful, the Eagle car again in IndyCar racing, run by Dan Gurney. Last year was a little bit of a difficult season for them, so they've switched to the British Reynard chassis for the start of this year, but they're planning to bring the Eagles, the new version, back out a little bit later on in the year, so let's hope that that's going to be successful for them. All the cars down the pit lane, you can see that car was on wet tyres. That's simply because they pushed it round to keep the tyres safe. But David, with the conditions looking good, it's very important as we go through the course of these two sessions. We've actually got two groups of cars out there. The track is probably going to get better, isn't it? Because it is a street circuit, not a normal racetrack.
That's right. You know, they put the track together for the race, and it's very slippery when you first go out there. There's always, you get a lot of dust coming from the rear wing backwards. It's just like a big tail of dust, and that slowly disappears as the session goes on, and obviously you've got to be quick.
Quick look there at Dario Franchitti, the young Scotsman who's into his second race here in Surfers Paradise. Did well in Homestead until he crashed. Unfortunately, he made that common mistake, if you like, for a rookie driver on an oval track. A very different discipline, of course. He moved out of the way of the race leader who was coming up to lap in, and he got on the dirty stuff and into the wall, and then you're just history, aren't you?
Well, that's right. Once you get into that dirt on an oval, there's just no forgiveness, and unfortunately he hit the wall, and you know, he's obviously learned his lesson. Hopefully he won't do it again.
Well, he's not on an oval this week. He's on a street circuit of, as we say, a very different discipline. The cars are set up quite differently as well. They're running a great deal more wing on the cars. At Homestead, they had to run the super speedway wings, which are tiny little things. Looking at the front of that car, you can just see how much wing there is on the car. And there, by the way, is a newcomer to the race this weekend. That's Arndt Meyer from Germany. He was the runner-up in the German Formula 3 Championship last year. He's saying his hellos to everybody in Europe through Eurosport, because this will be his first ever race in the PPG Kart World Series. Be hard for him to get used to, a bit different to a Formula 3 car with 180 brake horsepower.
Yes, it's always a big jump once you leave Formula 3 to go into IndyCar or Formula 1. It's a very steep learning curve, and you know, he's going to take his time to get into it, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Well, we had a quick view of Gualta Salas, and the promo ladies are prepared as well as the cars for the start of this qualifying. Two sessions, as I mentioned, two groups. The fastest 14 will go out in the second group of qualifying, and in just a few moments we should get the first group underway, and those were the cars that were 15th and beyond that in the first qualifying session on Friday. Just a quick look at one of the Mercedes engine units in the back of the Penske. And of course, Mercedes have had success already in Australia this year, David, with David Coulthard's win in Melbourne. I wonder if they're going to have similar success here in the IndyCar race.
Well, they're very strong, aren't they? Formula 1, IndyCar, anything that they do, they're always very, very good, very strong, very professional. And, you know, behind a Penske car, you have to say they're looking very strong.
Quick view a moment ago there of Max Papis. He's using Toyota power. And there, a quick view also of the pop-off valve. This is the thing that sits on top of the engine. Mark Blundell was telling us a bit more about this when we were in Homestead. And that limits the amount of turbo boost that these engines produce, and the authorities keep a very close eye on how much boost is being delivered. It's set very carefully, and they take the pop-off valves away after each qualifying session to make sure that nobody is getting more than their due share of turbo boost. Taking a quick look there at the Swift Indy car. Now this is the teammate's car to the one that won the opening round of the championship. This is Christian Fittipaldi's car. That was a brilliant debut for Swift, wasn't it, David, at Homestead?
Yeah, I think, it took a lot of people by surprise. Although I have to say, I raced against the Swift Atlantic car in America, and it came out straight away and won, so I'm not that surprised.
They've got a very good team, very good setup, and we've got this first session now just getting underway. This is the first of two groups, remember. We're seeing the slower cars from Friday qualifying going out, so provisionally qualified already. Let me just tell you that Alex Zanardi was fastest in the Friday session. Christian Fittipaldi, who we just saw his car a moment ago, he was second fastest. Scott Pruitt was third, Maurizio Gugelmin was fourth, Michael Andretti was fifth, and Jimmy Vasser was sixth fastest. But with the track improving, more and more rubber going down, we are expecting to see major improvements in the times as we go through this qualifying session. And as I mentioned, we've got the cars from 15th downwards, and that includes, believe it or not, the car you can see in the middle there, Alonso Jr. Bit of a surprise there, David, to see Alonso Jr., former champion, and he's out in this slower group of qualifying.
Yeah, Al must be struggling quite a bit with his car, although Al's not normally a very strong qualifier, but he's always very strong in the race, and he's got to be out there trying to get the setup, and he's probably working on the race more than qualifying now.
Now we're taking a bit of a look at this circuit. Let's just go through what are the features of this track. What are the difficulties of really making the car work? What's he got to think about in setting this car up?
Well, of course, you can see the chicanes there. They've got to be riding those chicanes quite hard, and they've got to set the car up for that. There's a lot of off-camber around the track, so it's very difficult to get the power down. A lot of these cars will be struggling for grip because it's dusty, and they've really got to concentrate on mechanical grip for the track.
So all about being smooth with the throttle and trying to look after those rear tyres. In terms of tyres, the two tyre companies that do battle in this form of racing, Goodyear and Firestone, they've both got two different types of tyre here this weekend, a softer tyre and a harder tyre in each case. Most of the teams with both Firestone and Goodyear have chosen the softer tyre for qualifying and then for the race, but there are one or two who are going to go for the harder tyre. And again, that comes back to that problem, doesn't it? Because if they've got problems with the rear tyres with traction, that problem's just going to get worse and worse in the race.
That's right. Because there's a lot of chicanes here, traction's very important. And of course, if you've got the harder tyre, you may not be quick at the beginning of the race, but towards the end, you'll certainly be a strong factor. And that's very important in this race.
So tyre choice will be fairly critical this weekend. You can just see Alonso Jr. locking up the inside wheel there. Never won this race at Surfers Paradise. That seems a bit of a surprise as well, because he's had so much success on street tracks in the past. He's a 5 times winner at Long Beach. Amazing record, and we've got the Long Beach race coming up next week live here on Eurosport. I wonder if he can add to that tally, but it would be great to see him go well here at Surfers Paradise. Penske has not won here either, in fact. Paul Tracy's won this race, but that was when he was driving for Newman Haas. So it just doesn't seem to have quite gone their way in recent years. So he has got some work to do. The other thing that's against him is that being out in this first session, it is likely that as more rubber goes down, the track's going to get faster and faster later on.
Yeah, that's right. As soon as you go down the track, like I said, there's a lot of dust. The last lap of qualifying will be the best time to be out there, and unfortunately Al won't be in that situation.
No, he's going to be seeing his teammate will be out in that situation. Paul Tracy is in that second group of qualifying, the fastest 14 cars from yesterday. But little Al's got to try and do his work, and you can see there how the back end of the car was sliding around. Again, as he comes out of that final corner, this is the start-finish straight, you can really see the back end of the car working, and that's what he's trying to keep under control.
Yeah, as soon as that car starts to slide at the back, it's right at the point where really you want to be on the throttle, not off the throttle, so that's where he's going to be losing time.
Bit smoother through the chicane. There's a series of chicanes, as we talked about. Just using the curb a little bit, and you can see the rubber tyre marks on those curves. We switch now to Brian Herter, the teammate to Bobby Rahal in the team Rahal-Reynard. They've got Ford Cosworth power for this year, but they had a disappointing run in Homestead. Have to say that the first race of the championship did not go at all well, really, for these two, with Brian Herter finishing in 10th place. Bobby Rahal was still running at the end, but he was down in 16th position. So not a good start to the season for them. They've had setup problems as well, and Brian Herter was saying that they ran 2 different setups on the car on Friday. Bobby's setup seemed a little better, but Brian was still struggling to get his car to work out, and he ended up 16th fastest in Friday practice. And that's a bit of a surprise because he had a very strong end to last season, came very close, in fact, to winning the last race of the championship.
Yeah, I thought the Rahal team was going to be very strong at the beginning of the race because they were so strong at the end of last year. But they must be struggling here again, and obviously the big factor also you've got to remember is that when the car's working, you've got to get the tyre temperature up to get the grip, and that's the thing they're really looking for.
Well, it sounds as though Bobby Rahal may be using the harder Goodyear tyre. That's an interesting choice for him. He's obviously looking more towards the race than towards qualifying in terms of getting the car all the way through. We've got a replay of somebody in trouble here, and this is a newcomer, and a newcomer who's getting into trouble. This is Paul Jasper, who he looked like he made contact with the wall with his right front wheel, but basically, David, looks as though he may have got away with it, more or less.
Yeah, it looks like he just brushed the wall. The thing about these Indy cars, they are made very strong, so you can do that and get away with it, unlike, say, a Formula 1 car.
Now, Paul Jasper, he is a new name. He's come from Formula Atlantic in the United States. He was actually Rookie of the Year in the Atlantic Championship. You raced in Atlantic. What is an Atlantic car, and how does it compare to one of these?
Well, obviously, it's a bit slower than one of these, but it's definitely faster than a Formula 3 car, so it's a little bit in between, a lot of downforce, and it's a good grounding.
Quite a few drivers have actually come up from Formula Atlantic up into this championship, and we'll be seeing a few more of those as they come out later on in the session. But Raul Boesel coming back into the pits. The initial running, Boesel going quick in this session. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
For the second race of the season, the stars of IndyCar take the New Look Kart Series to Queensland, Australia. Michael Andretti set the standard in the opener in Miami as his new Swift team served notice. They mean business this year, but it's early days and more challengers will be flexing their muscles down under.
Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of qualifying for the Surfers Paradise PPG Kart World Series race, round 2 of the championship. And you're looking at Dario Franchitti, the 23-year-old Scotsman, about to start his second race in the series and getting to learn a new street track as well. And of course, that's never an easy thing to do, particularly in a car with some 800 brake horsepower. Now, David, they're getting up to speeds of something like 185 miles an hour on this street track. It is one of the fastest street tracks. That really must make an amazing tunnel effect when you're sitting in a single-seater car between these walls.
Yeah, it does, because you go down and you go around the circuit in a road car. When you first look at the circuit, it looks quite wide. Then you start travelling down at 185 mile an hour, and all of a sudden it's just like a narrow tunnel. And certainly it makes you realise that any sort of mistake, you're going to be in big trouble.
When you're really pushing on a hard lap, are you actually aiming to clip the walls both inside and outside, or how does it work when you're actually sort of in the middle of the corner? Do you know you're going to come out in the right place, or do you think, oh my God, I'm going to hit the wall on the way out?
Well, you hope you know, but yeah, when you're on a fast lap, you're concentrating so hard that you're actually ahead of the car when you're with your own mind. So when you go through the corners, you're not really thinking about the walls. You could be missing it by millimeters, but you don't really notice it. And that's when you're really in a confident mood and you're doing a fast lap.
We're watching Patrick Carpentier at the moment. He's another guy who's come up from the Atlantic Championship, which we were talking about a little earlier on. And he won the series last year, and he had the opportunity to test this car, the Bettenhausen car, that was vacated by Stefan Johansson at the end of last year. He went up against a few quick European drivers and ended up being the one selected for a full season in the championship. Very impressive young guy. He's a French-Canadian, perhaps another one to follow in the footsteps of Jacques Villeneuve, who of course did great things in this form of racing. But just coming back to Atlantic just for a moment, it does seem to be an excellent training ground for this, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and it does produce a lot of good drivers, as does Formula 3 in Europe for people going to Formula 1. And when I was there was a lot of drivers who are racing there now, so yeah, it's great to see them out there doing well.
You were racing against some of the guys like Parker Johnston, I believe, and one or two of the others that were out there.
Yeah, Parker and also Parker Johnston and Jimmy Vasser. Vasser was a bit of a cool dude in those days, so he hasn't changed much at all.
Well, he's a very cool dude now because he's a champion, so it makes him even more cool. In fact, this was the race, one of the races he won. Oh, we've got a problem actually on session. We're watching Fangio at the moment, but a black flag has come out. There's a red flag out at the start-finish line. Now, let's just see if we can see what the trouble is here. Obviously, they've decided to stop this session for some reason or other. We haven't actually seen a car go off yet. Fairly early on in this qualifying session, we haven't seen many major improvements, although the track is looking a little faster than it was on Friday. One or two people beginning to improve their times. Raul Boesel has just moved up a little bit in the time so far. But, now there's the problem. We seem to have some fluid on the track for some reason, down just on the start-finish line, almost opposite the start-finish line. And that seems to be causing the problem. They want to try and clear that up a little bit. So Fangio's coming back into the pits. I think everybody else making their way back into the pit lane as well. Oh yeah, there's a slightly better view of it, David. And that's obviously not ideal whenever every other part of the track is bone dry.
No, it looks like it's on the straight, so it's not too much of a problem. But that's, you wouldn't want that sort of thing in the middle of the corner. Wouldn't do you any good at all.
Well, it gives everybody a chance to do a bit of setup work on the cars. There's Guelta Salas, the Brazilian, also into his first full season of the championship. And there are the kart safety team going to work, doing a sterling job as ever. I wonder if it was just water, because they seem to be actually washing it down with something. So maybe it was actually something a bit nastier than that. Maybe it was some oil or other sort of fluid that had gone down on the straight there, and they were a bit worried that cars perhaps even changing up would have got into trouble over the top of it.
Yeah, it's a very strange place which looks like water coming from somewhere. It doesn't look like it's coming from the track. You can see there's a line going straight across. Perhaps it's coming from somewhere else.
Well, there's Arndt Meyer again, the German who's having his first run this weekend, driving the car that Roberto Moreno was due to drive, but Moreno not able to get the money together for this race. So Arndt Meyer, well, in fact, no, sorry, correction on that. Meyer was due to drive this one. It's Paul Jasper who's taken over the drive that Roberto Moreno was due to run in this weekend. So Moreno having to sit on the sidelines, unfortunately. But the clear-up operation just about completed by the looks of things. Ready to get this session underway once again. Remember, this is still the first group that are qualifying here. We've still got the faster guys to come out in a separate session. And as the cars come back out onto the circuit, it's Alonso Jr. particularly, remember, that we're watching in this session to see whether he can really put in a quick lap and get himself somewhat further up the provisional grid than he is so far. 15th fastest so far in the overall standings. So he really with some work to do there, Alonso Jr. There we're taking a look at Richie Hearn in the Food for Less car. Another guy who's moved up through the ranks, Richie Hearn. Again, another Atlantic champion, funnily enough, from a couple of years ago. Did a bit of IndyCar last year, including the IRL Championship, and actually won one of the races in the IRL. The IRL being the competitive championship, if you like, to the kart series, although running slightly differently, different rules. They tend to run on the ovals more than this championship does. There's quite a battle going on between the two series, but it's interesting to see that Richie Hearn has actually, with his team Della Penna Motorsport, decided to come into the kart series, which I think really is still recognized to be the top international series in America.
Oh, absolutely. The kart series has been going for a long time. They've got a lot of established names, and when you've got people like Penske and Haas in there, it really does give credibility. The IRL is a new championship. It's trying to gain ground. It's got some different ideas. It'd be interesting to see how it goes. It hasn't really taken off so much since it's been started, really.
That's right. They've had a few ups and downs with it, but it's something that's still building, and we'll have to watch the progress of the two different championships. Back with Richie Hearn, we saw Guelta Salas there a moment ago, but Richie Hearn, just 20 years old, comes from a racing family. Both his mum and his dad used to compete in sports car racing in the United States, so he's been fairly well grounded in the sport. And in fact, interestingly enough, part of his career has already been in Europe, because he won the Elf Winfield School at Paul Ricard in France a couple of years ago, and actually raced for a season in Formula Renault in France, and then went back to the States to go and compete in sports cars before moving up to the Toyota Atlantic Championship in 1994, and then winning the Atlantic Series in 1995. And then, as I mentioned, moving into the IRL last year and making 3 starts in the PPG Kart Series. He was making his debut at Long Beach, where he finished in 10th place. Good debut, that. Also raced at Toronto and at Laguna Seca. And the opening round of the championship this year at Homestead, he finished in 11th place. So definitely a guy to watch for the future, and a fairly inexperienced team as well. Della Penna Motorsports have moved up with him from the Toyota Atlantic Series. So the whole group is busy learning the craft, if you like, of this type of racing. And of course, they're out in Australia. This is a bit different for them. They're having to travel a lot more work on moving all that equipment, all the personnel, and really it's a whole different ball game to running cars in the Toyota Atlantic Series. Back now to Alonso Jr. though. Now he looks as though, to me, he's going on a fast lap. Let's watch this, concentrate on this one, David, and let's see if we can pick out if he's gaining or losing time. Let's watch the behavior of this car. Let's see if they managed to dial it in. You can see the stickers on the tyres just about worn off, so he's onto a quick lap. And there, as you said, he's using the curb quite a lot, isn't he?
Yes, that's right. But also with the stickers on the tyres, if he's already on his fast lap now, then he's not getting enough heat into the front tyres and not being able to work them properly.
Because the stickers are still there, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. The stickers are still there, so if he's on his fast lap, then he's going to be struggling with front grip.
Yeah, well, you can see, he certainly looks as though he's charging hard at the moment, just locking the brakes a little bit into the left-hander. He's now running alongside the seashore, basically, here. Sometimes when they pan back a little bit, you'll get a view of the sandy beach to the left-hand side of the picture, running alongside the sea where all the surf comes in, a great surfing part of the world. That's why it's known as Surfers Paradise, big tourist centre as well. But Alonso Jr. is not worried about that. All he's worried about is hustling this Penske round as quickly as possible. Such an important year this for Penske after a disappointing season last year when neither of the cars won a single race. Little Al kept in the hunt for the championship through consistent finishes, but there was no doubt that last year's car was not on the pace. It wasn't what we've come to expect from Roger Penske's operation, and they want to see this car performing on this kind of track if they're going to have a chance for the championship this year.
You can see there when he was arriving into that corner that the front of the car's bouncing quite a bit on entry, so that could be upsetting the car. And again, he's trying to get the power on, so obviously the track's getting more grip, and you know, hopefully Al's on a good lap here.
Well, let's see if he comes across the line. Well, it's not a bad lap. It's a better lap from Alonso Jr. It's a 138.218 for Alonso Jr. Let's just compare that. Well, yesterday he did a 139.1. So an improvement, but I don't think it's going to be enough. But a man who has just improved is this man. Dario Franchitti has just gone fastest in this session so far. Now remember, that doesn't mean that he's going to be fastest overall because we've still got another session to go. But Dario Franchitti is really getting it together. Now it's interesting, he's in the backup car. He's been having down change problems all weekend so far with his main race car. He can't get it to get out of gear when he wants to down change. And of course, David, that makes driving the car quickly very difficult, doesn't it?
Oh, it does make it very difficult because you can't get your timing right. You're thinking about the gear change and not thinking ahead and doing the job. So Dario's doing a fantastic job here. You know, he's a rookie in this championship, and he's already shown that he's going to be a serious contender.
Well, when he saw he's overdone it this time, he locked up and he decided to bail out of that one pretty quickly, didn't he?
Well, it was lucky there was a bit of a runoff there, otherwise he would have hit the wall, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but still, you know that when you go into it, don't you?
Yeah, you know where to push and where not to push. You do get that idea very quickly. Good
performance, though, from Dario Franchitti, fastest in this session, and that's, in fact, if you put that into the context of the Friday times, that has put him in third place overall. So brilliant effort from Dario Franchitti, and he's obviously much happier with his backup car than he was with the main car from yesterday. Now, don't forget, third place overall, that may well change once the faster guys come out. But let's see now what Max Papis can do in the Toyota-powered Reynard. Oh, he's really giving it some stick. The back end of the car really sliding around here.
Yeah, you can see he's throwing this car around quite a lot. He's obviously struggling with grip. Yeah, you see, there he's got a big tail coming out there. He's locking up. He could be overdriving because it's you know, around this track you've got to hustle it, but you can't throw it around too much because you just slide too much speed off.
Well, he's certainly giving it maximum attack. Is Max Papis. Big character, a lot of enthusiasm, and maybe, as you say, a touch too much enthusiasm there, but not a bad time from Max Papis, just crossing the line, and the time is a 139.9, so that's a good improvement on yesterday when he was in the 1 minute 42, so it was a bit slow on the Friday. Good improvement from Papis, but whether that moves him up the order much, he was 24th yesterday, and we'll just have to see when the second group comes out for their qualifying session to see exactly where he ends up. Brian Herter, we're into the dying moments of this first session now. And Brian Herter comes across the line. In fact, yes, the checkered flag is out now. Brian Herter crosses the line. He was 16th yesterday on a 39.4. He's improved his time to 137.8. And that's put him second fastest to Dario Franchitti in this session. So we've got problems there. That's Michel Jourdain, the Mexican. And he got a spin on. And look at Alonso Jr. coming around. Ooh, dear, oh dear, Alonso.
Yeah.
Alonso
You see, Al wasn't going to back off there, even though there was a car there. He was obviously still trying to get a lap time out.
Yeah, it looks as though Dario Franchitti has come to a stop at the side of the road. Doesn't look as though he's done any damage. Looks as though he's simply run out of fuel. We had a few people do that on Friday, including both Vassar and Zanardi. He ran out of fuel exactly the same spot on the track, the two teammates. So obviously everybody's running the car as light as possible on the fuel load, and that includes Dario. But he's done a great job. He's fastest in this session, but we've got the quick guys still to come. In the first group out there, they've done their session now, and now it's time for the top 14 from yesterday's qualifying to go into the second group. That includes Bobby Rahal, who was 10th fastest on Friday, still working to get that car handling right, and he's using the harder tyre, which is interesting to see. He's using the slightly harder Goodyear tyre, but the competition between Firestone and Goodyear does seem to be very, very even again. We had a Firestone fastest on Friday, but a Goodyear tyred car second, then a couple of Firestone cars, and then a Goodyear tyred car in 5th place. So very, very close between them. There's the Canadian, Greg Moore, and just getting ready for this part of the session. Yesterday he was 8th fastest, looking to hold on to a position in the top 10, perhaps even move up. He finished 3rd here last year. It was an excellent result for him, and he obviously likes this track. There's Adrian Fernandez getting ready in 12th place, fastest of the Lola runners in yesterday's qualifying session. Both he and teammate Andre Ribeiro were very, very evenly matched, and they've made some improvements on the Lola. They've stiffened up the rear bulkhead since that Homestead race where the Lolas were in a bit disappointing form. Gilles de Ferran there, getting ready to go. A few drivers here, David, that you're pretty familiar with from European racing as well, the likes of Gilles de Ferran, for example, and some Formula One people, ex-Formula One people that you've raced against. There's Mark Blundell, of course.
Yeah, sure. No, it's great to see them out there doing well, because a lot of the drivers who tried to do Formula One just couldn't get it together. Mark was obviously with McLaren, so he did a good job, but you know, a lot of the guys, it's difficult because of the sponsorship and everything. They've gone to America, and you've got more chance of doing well there because the way they've structured the whole racing, it's a lot better. You can go over there. If you've got a half decent car, you can do really well.
Looking into the eyes of Paul Tracy, and he's not wearing his spectacles, so I guess he's got his contact lenses in.
That means he's going to go fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe that's the secret. They take his glasses away when they want him to put in a pole lap. Yeah, well, Paul Tracy certainly got a bit of a reputation. He can be a bit wild, can't he, at times?
Yeah, he's definitely a wild boy. When he came out and did the Tasman series when I was out there, and he wasn't afraid to put it on the line, and he's just maintained that all the time. He's very fast, there's no doubt about it, and he's maturing all the time. Did a great race at Homestead, and he's looking strong. I could see him being a real strong factor for this race.
Yes, if the car's working well, and they do seem to have got the Penske working better. Although, having said that, Alonso Jr., as we saw just now, was struggling a bit. He ended up 3rd fastest in that last group, by the way. Was Franchitti fastest in the first group. Great performance from the Scotsman, absolutely so impressive. And it's great to see the progress that he's making with Mercedes backing. Of course, they really have helped him. He did such a great job in the ITC and the German Touring Car Championship over the last couple of years. But it must be quite a thing to get out of one of those super touring cars, well, not a super touring car, but one of the German touring cars, international touring cars, and into one of these cars, mustn't it?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's touring cars and open wheeler cars are very different, but Dario seems to have been able to adapt very quickly in what he gets into. So, I mean, that is always very important.
So, second group out for qualifying now. Remember, these were the fastest 14 on Friday, and we're expecting to see the battle for pole position between these cars. Guterman leads them out, Maurizio Guterman, and he was 4th fastest on Friday. Wasn't particularly happy with the setup of the car on Friday, so he'll be looking for better things today. The PacWest team, he's teammate, of course, to Mark Blundell. And also there's Scott Pruitt. Now, he's the car that's second on the road at the moment. That's yellow and red car, or orangey red car. And Pruitt was fastest in this morning's session before qualifying got underway, so keep an eye out for that car. Always goes well here at Surfers Paradise. He's had a run of good results on this racetrack, and I think that Pruitt could be a dark horse. They had a very limited testing time in their car for Homestead because they were running Lolas, or were planning to run Lolas, and they switched to running Reynards during the winter. So they had very limited time to test for the first race, but here at Surfers Paradise they could be in good shape. But there's another man who could be in good shape, Michael Andretti, Christian Fittipaldi not far behind him. That's Christian we're looking at just now. And of course, David, Christian is another guy who's had a lot of Formula One experience that he's been able to bring into this form of racing.
Oh, for sure. You know, Christian's a very good driver, and he showed in Formula One that he was very capable of doing the job. Never got into the car that could win, unfortunately. He's gone to America. He's driving for Haas now, and he's been strong. And yes, his experience here at the road course at Surface Paradise will be very, very good for him.
When did you race? Did you race against Christian in through the ranks at all? Because he came into Formula 3 a little bit after you in the UK.
Yes, he did, but I mean, obviously in '94 he was driving for Arrows and I was driving for Simtech, and you know, he was always in front of me, unfortunately, but these things happen.
Quite a good atmosphere in the kart championship. I noticed that when I'm sort of talking to the guys in the pit lane, it's a fairly relaxed environment. That's slightly different in some ways to the Formula One environment, where everybody, you know, is working so hard. It's such a high-tech, but also a high-pressure environment to work in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, when you go down a Formula One pit lane, it's a competition to try and find out who's smiling. You know, but in the Indy cars. I went out there in '82 to watch my brother race, and it was a fantastic atmosphere. They really enjoy it, and they really focus on trying to make it a real show for the fans.
Got a problem here for Scott Pruitt, the man we were talking about earlier as being fastest this morning. His car's come to a halt, a grinding halt by the look of it, and so they've actually black flagged this one again. Notice how they're always very careful to stop these sessions. If there's any sort of problem, they're quite happy to stop the session, get the cars back in, clear it out of the way, and then get the session underway so that nobody is hindered by a car being in a dangerous position. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, there's a chance for us to see Zanardi. We haven't really seen him so far, and he's the guy who's fastest after Friday's session, remember. He's on the provisional pole, and he's going for this amazing record here today, David, of trying to make it 6 consecutive pole positions in a row. Now, that would be quite some achievement, wouldn't it?
Particularly for someone who's had little experience in IndyCar racing, but he's got a very good team behind him. He's working with Mo Nunn, who, if he's got a very good working relationship with an engineer such as Mo Nunn, then he's going to be very strong, and he's shown that so far, and it'll be interesting to see if he can pull that out of the bag, and he'll probably wait till the end of the session to do it.
Well, that's good. Clear to get the Scott Pruitt's car out of the way. In fact, he's already made it back to the pit lane. But look, he's in Raul Boesel's car. That was actually the backup car he was in already, because he had problems with his race car with the gearbox yesterday. So he was already in the backup car, and now he's had to take over Raul Boesel's car because of his other car now having trouble. Some sort of electrical problem being reported. So Scott Pruitt not having a very lucky time. But what we have got now is some onboard pictures with Michael Andretti, the winner of the opening race of the championship this year, and therefore the championship leader coming into this race. He's won here at Surface Paradise in the past, and that was a dramatic win. It was in 1994. It was the first ever win for Reynard in their first ever IndyCar race, and it was also Michael's return from Formula One, the year that he had that disastrous year he had with McLaren in Formula One, where nothing seemed to go right for him. He really lost a lot of confidence that year, but he came back here to Australia, Surface Paradise, and he blitzed them. He went out there in the Reynard, he won the race, he bashed into walls along the way, but he got away with it, and it was an absolutely superb comeback. And now, David, he seems to be a driver with his full confidence back again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate Michael Andretti because, you know, he was always doing very well in America. He came over to do Formula One with McLaren, which wasn't easy. He was Ayrton Senna's teammate. And, you know, a lot of people say the second driver at McLaren really doesn't get the treatment that he probably deserves. But he's gone back into IndyCars, and again, he's just shown that he is a top-class driver.
Let's just keep quiet a moment and just listen to this. The IndyCar at full song. Through this second chicane. Now we're coming down to the bottom part of the circuit. Got a couple of 90-degree left-handers coming up. Let's just watch him through these two. See if he's getting the power down as smoothly as he needs to. Well, David, what do you reckon through those two?
Well, you can see with the amount of turning lock that he's got on the steering wheel, he looks like he's suffering from understeer because he's going in there. There's a lot of angle on the front wheels, and he's just trying to get the front of the car to go into the corner.
So it looks as though it's a little bit of harder work than Michael Andretti would like to get that car turned in. Let's have a look at his teammate now, Christian Fittipaldi, also in the Swift. This car, as we mentioned earlier, built in the United States. A brilliant success story to come through and win their first race. And on board now with Christian Fittipaldi. Let's see if there's any difference in technique. Let's just watch him for a moment. Well, we may not get a chance to see quite as much. Back on board again. Not much chance to see there because we didn't really see him through one of the tighter corners. But interesting, of course, do note difference to Formula One, how they have to reach the hand down to change gear in one of these cars. There's no little paddles behind the steering wheel.
It's certainly strange to see that because we're so used to the Grand Prix drivers' hands just not moving because they've got buttons and switches. But yeah, it's good to see the hand dropping down and having to work that little bit more to change gear.
These cars not as technically advanced in some ways, but the part of that is through the rules in terms of keeping the cars more competitive with each other. And you can see just correcting the lock a little bit, up through the gears, picking up to maximum speed along this start-finish straight, building up to around 185 miles an hour before he comes down into one of these chicanes. And then you've just got to thread the needle through here. Really tight when you're coming in at that speed.
Yeah, it is. You know, you're picking up a lot of speed. You looked at your lap board, you're seeing what time you're on. You think, right, I've got to go a little bit faster, and then you've got this chicane in front of you. You know, you want to brake a little bit later. Yeah, certainly a lot of fun when you're out there.
Now we're with Jimmy Vasser, the reigning champion, the winner of this race last year, and also the guy who took pole position in the dying moments of the session last year. He grabbed pole position from Scott Pruitt, the man we saw in trouble with that stopped car earlier on. Pruitt had been fastest throughout the weekend, and then along came Vasser and snatched the advantage away. Firestone's definitely had the advantage here in 1996. This year, it does look a little bit more even Stevens between the two tyre companies. But let's just keep an eye on Vasser now as he begins to build up. Looks as though he's going to go on to a quick lap at the end of this one, just beginning to work the car a little bit through that tricky double chicane there. Quite a few bumps in there as well. That's another problem. It's not just about hitting the curbs. You've got to be careful over those bumps, haven't you?
Yes, you do, because on where those bumps are, it's where you're trying to accelerate. So you've got to make sure the car is just supple enough to be able to get the throttle on without the rear jumping up and down. And you know, when it does that, you just get a lot of engine RPM, but you're not going anywhere.
Coming round now, we should see him go on to a quick lap here. This is the last corner before he comes on the start-finish straight. Get on the power early. That looked pretty smooth. He was on the power very cleanly there. Yeah,
he's definitely coming out of that last corner very well. Be interested to see how this lap goes.
Down towards this first chicane, building the speed up. Well, we're going to lose him now for the moment. He's just going on to his quick lap. We switch now to Scott Pruitt, the man, as I said, who was battling for pole last year. But remember, he's out in Raoul Boesel's car, and the whole car setup's wrong for him in terms of the pedals. Even the gear change is in a slightly different position in this car to in his own car. So he's having to work quite hard to set a representative time here. But he's doing all right. He's put in a couple of laps already that well in the top 10 of the session so far. Jimmy Vasser is on a quick lap at the moment by the looks of things. Looks as though we're going to see an improvement from Vasser as he comes round to finish off this lap. And Scott Pruitt also looking very, very competitive at the moment. But let me just tell you that Vasser on a quick lap, he's taken over the settings that Zanardi has been using so far this weekend. Vasser said that he reckons they got off the plane with a setup from space. The car was so far off the pace on Friday.
Like Jimmy Vasser.
Yeah, pretty cool comment. But Vasser is just coming through behind Raoul Boesel, and a good time from Jimmy Vasser. In fact, he's just gone fastest. Jimmy Vasser fastest in this session so far. Welcome back to coverage of the Surfers Paradise qualifying session. Jimmy Vasser's just gone fastest at 136 in fact, 136.441 for Jimmy Vasser. So is he going to take another pole position this year? Make it 2 years in a row that he will start from that treasured pole position. He's got to watch out for the likes of Paul Tracy, though, going quickly now as well as he begins to get on the pace. Tracy, who was quite a long way down the list yesterday, he was down in 11th place yesterday, but he's already got himself up into the top 5 in this second qualifying session, the final qualifying session for the race. And he looks as though he's got his car dialed in a little better than Alonso Jr., but he's also got the advantage that the track is cleaner and the temperature's cooled off a little bit as well. It's slightly better conditions than it was for the first group, and Tracy now beginning to put in some quick laps himself. former winner here at Surfers Paradise, but that was when he was driving for the Newman-Haas team. We tend to think of Tracy as being sort of permanently in Penske team, but there was, of course, an episode where he left Penske, went to Newman-Haas and was teammate with Michael Andretti. That was 1995, and it was a slightly fortunate win. Michael Andretti was heading for the victory, lost second gear in the latter part of the race, and Paul Tracy was able to nip through and take the win. But it was an important victory for him at that stage. But back at Penske now, and it would be even more important, if you like, for him to try and take the victory here this weekend. It would really give the Penske crew an enormous boost. Back into the pits, Paul Tracy now up to 5th place, but it's Jimmy Vasser who is fastest in this session so far. And with the times improving, Dario Franchitti's dropping back down the list. He was fastest in that first group, remember, but he's now just in the top 10, just dropping down. He's in 10th place at the moment, and if one or two others go quicker, he's going to drop down further. But nonetheless, it was an excellent effort in the session. Christian Fittipaldi, he's just outside the top 10 at the moment, down in 11th place. And Jimmy Vasser, there he is, the fastest man in the circuit so far with that 1 minute 36.441. And that's a good effort from him. In fact, it's not fast enough to be fastest overall. That honour is still the honour of Alex Zanardi from yesterday's time. Just shows you how quick Zanardi was on Friday. Zanardi was actually a second faster than anybody else yesterday. So Zanardi is still the fastest overall, but Vasser is the fastest today, and that puts him second overall. And it could be an all Chip Ganassi target front row to the grid. Looking now at Parker Johnson. Now Parker Johnson has come up through the ranks from sports car racing up into this form of motorsport. But again, David, you raced against this guy. He's a really nice guy. He's a very down-to-earth guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He raced with me in the Atlantic Series in New Zealand, and he's got a lovely wife and children. And when they're racing in America, he just travels around in a bus, and then at the end of the season, he then goes back home.
Yeah, he's a very relaxed competitor. I always remember that interview he gave last year in Long Beach when he had a good result there, got on the podium for the first time in an IndyCar race, and he was just so delighted. It was so wonderful to see that joy at the end of the race.
He was so emotional, wasn't he? It was a very small team, small budget, no testing, and for him to have a result like that he was having all Christmases at once.
This race gets a big crowd here at Surfers Paradise. It's obviously very important in Australia. Would you say that there's quite a lot of support for the championship there?
Oh, for sure. Queensland don't really have major events like, say, the Grand Prix down in Adelaide and Melbourne. And the IndyCar guys come down here. It's a real carnival festival, and the whole community get behind it. They get good crowds down there.
Watching now Greg Moore, and Greg Moore looking very, very quick at the moment. In fact, he's just improved his times. He's now up into the top 6. Remember, yesterday he was 8th fastest, and Greg Moore's on a quick lap right now, and we'll see what the young Canadian can do. Really is one of the talents to watch for the future. As I mentioned earlier, he finished 3rd here last year. He really seems to like street circuits. They suit his style, his attacking style, and he certainly is a racer. We saw some amazing overtaking maneuvers from him last year, both on the ovals, the street circuits, and on the road courses. Greg Moore with the new Reynard now. He's got the brand new car. This car was only just finished off the other day, in fact. They've got a backup car that's come straight from the UK, but he has got a 1997 car now, which is good news, and that means that he is going to be more and more competitive. So he comes back into the pits, but he's gone. In fact, that last lap that he did has put him second in this session now. Greg Moore second in the session. That puts him 3rd overall in the times, a 136.754, 0.3 of a second slower than Jimmy Vasser, but it's an excellent effort from Greg Moore, and so far he's the fastest of the Mercedes-powered cars. But Tracy is back on the circuit once more, and he is now looking as though he's going to challenge for that front row position. Oh dear. Well, he certainly had just about everything locked up there.
You can see he's trying.
Almost touching the wall on the way out. Now this looks like vintage Tracy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. He's on a hot lap, and he's trying to squeeze every ounce out of that car, which he's very capable of doing.
Let's just watch him, see how accurate he is. Just hopping over the curb a little bit there, and now back on the gas, accelerating down the back stretch here, and he's coming down towards that complicated chicane that they've got to deal with.
You can see he's actually not going over the curbs that much, so he's either, that probably might have been a small mistake, but he's looking good everywhere else.
Very smooth though, wasn't it? Didn't seem to sort of lose any time. Didn't have the car scrubbing sideways at all.
No, but you can see there he's locking up a little bit. He's obviously trying to work on his brake balance around the circuit, and this looks good.
It does look good. Let's watch him out of the final corner and see if he can get the power down well here. Sliding slowly, a little wide of the apex there, miles away from the apex, but he's so fast. He's coming across the line. It's going to be a good lap from Paul Tracy. Crossed the line, and Tracy goes fastest. And in fact, he goes fractionally faster than Zanardi's time from yesterday. So Tracy takes pole position with that lap. Superb effort from Paul Tracy. And in spite of being wide on that last corner, Paul Tracy with a 1:36.140. That compares to a 1:36.156 from Zanardi yesterday. And Paul Tracy takes pole position. And another mover is Mark Blundell. Mark has just put in a quick lap himself and a 1:36.754. In fact, that's exactly the same time that Greg Moore's just done.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
Mark's done a great job.
Yeah, Mark's done a very good job. You know, he's building his confidence back up after a terrible year last year, and he's got all the right ingredients to do well this year, and let's hope he does well.
That's put him 5th fastest so far. At the moment, it's Paul Tracy fastest, Alex Zanardi 2nd, then Jimmy Vassett 3rd, Greg Moore is 4th, Mark Blundell is in 5th place, then Parker Johnston is in 6th position, Scott Pruitt is 7th, Maurizio Guterman in 8th position, then Christian Fittipaldi is 9th, and Bobby Rahal 10th fastest so far. We've still got a little way to go in this second group of the qualifying, this final qualifying session from Surfers Paradise. Paul Tracy on pole position. Well, that really would be a boost to the Penske team. But what can Alex Zanardi do about it? He's still up. There is Zanardi. There is Alex Zanardi coming up behind Mark Blundell. Now, I wonder if Mark's going to let him through here. Zanardi looks as though he's going on to a quick... Yeah, Mark moves out of the way, lets him through. Blundell's already put in a quick lap, and it looks as though Zanardi is now going to attack that time of Paul Tracy. I'm sure that the team will have let him know that he has now lost that coveted pole.
Yeah, they would definitely know. Look, you can see him over the curves there. The car's obviously set up well for those curves, and he's really trying.
Yeah, he was bouncing it all over the place. Got to be careful, of course. If you bounce it too hard, you're straight into one of those concrete walls. But Zanardi is fired up. He wants this record. He wants to beat the record of Mario Andretti and Danny Sullivan of 5 consecutive pole positions for a PPG kart race. And Zanardi coming close over the bumps into the left-hander. Keeps it tidy. Comes out well there. Close to the wall, but not quite touching it.
No, but you can just see that the way he's going around the corners and the exit of the corner, he's actually steering out towards the wall, which means he's got a good car and he's looking good for a good lap.
Very quick out of that chicane. Now, you can see Mark Blundell in the background, actually almost staying with him as well. He's putting in a fairly quick lap himself here. Now, let's watch Zanardi down through this critical chicane. Over the curve, bang, bang, over 1, over 2.
He wants this, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he? He really is working that car hard. Now let's watch into the left-hander. This is a tricky corner. Oh, he was so close into the inside, it seemed to almost knock him out.
Well, you know, he's definitely trying, and of course you're going to have a few mistakes here and there, but this lap looks very good.
So will this be fast enough to take pole position away from Paul Tracy? Tracy, it is on pole. Zanardi is 2nd fastest so far. He's already on the front row, but can he make it 6 consecutive pole positions? Alex Zanardi comes up to cross the line. Across the line he goes, and it is pole position for Alex Zanardi. Zanardi takes pole by a fraction of a second. The checkered flag is out. That's the end of the session. And Zanardi with a 1:35.940. He's the only man to get into the 1-minute 35s, just under that barrier, and he snatches pole position from Paul Tracy in the dying moments of this final qualifying session. And I don't think anybody else is on a quick lap at the moment. I don't think anybody else is going to beat that now. Zanardi takes his 6th consecutive pole position. What an achievement.
Oh, fantastic achievement. He obviously left it right to the last minute when the track was going to be at its best, and he just did the business.
Talk us through this, David.
Well, you can see he's really trying, going right over those curves, and oh yeah, you can see that when he does go over those curves, that the car is actually handling the curves quite well, and that does allow him to be quite forceful through there.
Well, forceful, I think that's the word for it. He was really committed through the chicane and through most of the rest of the lap as well. Paul Tracy losing out only by 0.2 of a second, and you have to say, if Paul hadn't gone wide on that last corner...
Yeah, I think that last corner did lose him a little bit of time getting the power down.
Well, let's take a look at the times then. The top 10 times there. Zanardi fastest by that fraction from Paul Tracy, second fastest. Vassar is third. Greg Moore fourth. Mark Blundell, brilliant performance from Mark again. He hasn't been to this circuit before, remember, as a driver. He came to visit last year when he had a broken foot, but he hadn't driven here. Parker Johnston sixth, Scott Pruitt seventh, Mauricio Guterman in eighth place, then Fittipaldi ninth, and Bobby Rahal 10th. Let me just tell you, behind them, Gilles de Ferran is 11th fastest. Michael Andretti, the winner of the opening race, is only 12th, but he did start the Homestead race from 14th on the grid, so don't count him out. Dario Franchitti will line up 13th on the grid as Alex Zanardi comes into the congratulations of his team after that record-breaking performance. 6 consecutive pole positions. Absolutely brilliant performance. Let me just quickly go through the rest of the list for you. 14th, Andre Ribeiro. 15th, Adrian Fernandez. 16th, Brian Herter. 17th place for Alain Unser Jr. Disastrous, really, for him. He's a long way down. Guelta Sales, 18th. Raul Boesel is 19th. And Richie Hearn is 20th. Max Papis is 22nd on the grid. Arndt Meyer, the German, in his first run, is 27th on the grid. There'll be 28 starters for tomorrow's second round of the PPG Kart World Series. But the man who'll be on pole position after an absolutely superb effort here is Alex Zanardi. And there, Chip Ganassi, former driver himself in the championship, congratulating Zanardi, and that is fully justified. Brilliant performance for Zanardi. And a brief word, David, what can you say?
Well, obviously he's got the record. That's a fantastic achievement. I think we've got a great race coming up, particularly because Paul Tracy's second, and he's on Goodyear tyres, which normally you see the Firestones are quicker at the beginning, but at the end the Goodyears come on strong.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. You can join us live for the race itself, early hours of Sunday morning, 6 o'clock Central European time. From Ben Edwards and David Brabham, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.